So, as is the case with any, time that we're engaging in spiritual practice or practicing Dharma, whatever form that takes, it's always very important that we have a pure motivation. And so we always talk about this, the importance of cultivating the pure motivation. And again, here at the outset of receiving Dharma teachings, it's good to reflect inward, to see really what's in the mind, and to summon a pure intention. So there's kind of these two aspects to it. What this pure intention or motivation really means is to have kind of like a purity of heart, a kind of an attitude of wholesomeness or goodness. And then when we have this pure attitude of heart and mind, then it ensures that the Dharma really actually goes in the direction of true Dharma or becomes authentic Dharma. And so that's why it's so important to have a pure motivation at the outset. And then, so to really make our intention as vast as we can, that means, extending it to such an extent that we have bodhicitta, that we have the mind of awakening. And so this completely pure intention is sort of twofold in terms of also the vehicles. So we take up the methods, the profound methods of sutra, which is essentially, the mind of bodhicitta. And then in the path of secret mantra of Vajrayana, there are so many different methods. This is the path of like the vast methods. And within all of those methods, we take up the motivation or the method of pure view. So pure view, our pure intention is twofold: the mind of bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, and pure view.
Tene tangnan se tenyang tanda zangwa nga ji kapsa lakbar te zangwa nyingbo la sokpa tene gyu ginang la. Tene kuzob te takba chenpo se, kuzob ngoni xeba ina kyu tamche ma takba meba, takba ginang la, takba inba tang. Tundam te nyamba chenpo se. Tundam sero.
Dundam.
Tundam te chutamchi nyambares. Teyindu tangyam denba yirmi chi tawa sen, tawa te kechenpor, tawa saya te rong ke samno tang tong tong, rong ke chu kang da kang ina, tada tam che le samno chi tang che ne ta tsor. Dendri jinsare sam, dendri samno chi tang kogarwa. Teli yi chi kogar. Teyindu takba, kuzob to takba chenpo to todam to nyamba chenpo se, te ke chenpo yinsare. Teyindu tangyam denba yirmi ki tawa se, rang yi chi ba teli kogarwa. Rang teli.
Rang shen nika. Gari?
Rang yi chi ba.
Oh, rang yi chi ba. Rang la yi chi ba?
Rang kis yi chi ba. Ji kogarwa. Tawa tela yi ma chi ba yina, tene gomba saya te kandri ju gomguyo me. Tene ha koguyo mara. Tene tawa la yi chi ba te ke chenpo re. Tawa te yi chi sa tenyong. Tangyam denba yenmi chi tawa tela yi chi kogo re. Tangyam denba yerme singdo.
Gari yerme?
Tak nyam
yerme.
denba yerme.
Denba yerme.
Kuzubto takbari chutamji. Matangpa chik jomeba. Todamdo chutamji. Nyamba chimba.
And so with respect to this method of pure view that we find in Secret Mantra or Vajrayana, this is very important. So as it says in the Sangwa Ningpo Sena Guya Samajarave. Guya Garba. In the Guya Garba Tantra, as it says, so in the with respect to the relative, we practice so regarding the two truths, right? The relative truth and the ultimate truth. So from within the relative truth, we practice developing pure view. So ordinarily, we see everything as impure, we see it as ordinary, and so we practice seeing the purity of all phenomena. And then from the perspective of the ultimate view, that becomes the equality of all phenomena, sort of the equality, right, Nyampa? Mm-hmm. And so these two, kind of the purity and the equality, this view of purity and the kind of equal taste or equal nature of all phenomena is very important. So whenever, and in order to have kind of this purity of intention with regard to these two aspects, there has to be kind of a mind of confidence or faith in this absolute nature and the absolute purity in the true nature of all phenomena. So then if we have this from the relative, the side of the relative truth, this view that sees the innate purity of all things, the innate purity of all phenomena, and then from the side of the ultimate truth, there is the view of the equality, the equal nature, the equal taste of all phenomena, all things. And so it's really important to have confidence or trust. Without trust, then there is no way to really have confidence in the meditation and the practice. So there has to first be confidence or sort of faith in the view, and then dependent upon that confidence, that understanding, then there is the ability to really kind of meditate on that understanding or habituate that understanding. So we rely upon the indivisibility of these two, the purity and the equality.
So in the Tanam Jungatso Domba Sungdeya Ringbo Tung Tung Kandina, Tomino, Jerton, Tanangundo, Mui Kangi Capsina, Sungdeya, Nala, Jerton Mandubio Maricadesena. Our tenla pap shakbati, tene gumbegi nyams lembe kapsu, ndri chekogre serne, tene pechanam song shakarwa, tene matsu denan dun charwa, nama nansi namda ke lama sendo, nansi namda set, kujob to takba chembogi, ten song doa. 그저 또 마다 밖에 경험해 봐. 나신 시비 추 탐지. 닭발이. 너무 나시 남다 생도.
닭발점보.
대 그저부터 닭발점보. 그저서나 낭대위 추들 세거라. 저 낭대위 추. 낭와들 그저서도. 대인도 나시 남다. 대용 라미긴 거 샤르데바. 된리주 코송와이나. 되는 거 그냥만. 나는 그저께 나는 저도 줘. 대차가. Tene jana sem duni jeme namda londe chuk tokbar hinjala sem duni jewa meba rangi sem de duni am ye duma nyene jewa meba ngaka meba ti todamdo nyamba chimbo saya todamdo rangi seminare simjen hendak seminare sanjige Yeshi na tam chete 마냥 좀 해봐. 로렌디 비 추크임바. 대또 그래서 대인데 소나라 탐지 누구여. 더 만두비야 말이나 값값성아서 되는 전소 그 소르트. 값값들의 휴나야 보여서래서 되는 휴버.
And so this is so dompa sum nangla kongta kare tampo dompa sum nangla kare sumye dompa sumyere oh kemsa dompa sum tien yini ang yun ringpo tampo penangundo nangla sang madubayo mare digingunla kare sumye
ngundo nangla tanda tawi kitena papyawa jiorwa tate so gomjanne gomsena nyamlanche ne jigoorwa 때 냠는 제베 값은 냠는 제당도 나 배차 릉보이나 통통이나 관계이나 나리나 만두부 지통 요 말했어. 제인들 때는 아주 쳇배 창다고 시작하면 단다 아주 는 살바티노 가르카른도 되네. 섬나 땅와이나 남문왕시 남다세 장도 고글도 배차 고글도.
And so, really in all of the various practices that we have, whether both short or long, for instance, in the preliminary practices or the ngundro, this is all complete within it. There's nothing that is not complete. And so, whatever it is that one is practicing, it is, the entirety of the complete meaning of both the relative and the ultimate truth are contained within that. And so depending, on what it is that one is practicing, then there is all that is necessary in order to drop into the recognition of the view, or to establish the view, to meditate in this way. So for instance, in this, our opening prayers, what Khenpo often refers to is this opening line, on page 11, where it says, Namo to the Lama of utterly pure appearance and existence. And so this appearance and existence, the purity of appearance and existence, is referring to this pure view with respect to, this method, or the correct view with regard to the relative truth, that the true nature of all appearance, that all that appears and exists, or all phenomena, is this innate purity. And so, and that essence, the essence of that nature, is what sort of shines forth as or manifests as, the Lama's essence is also that pure nature, that pure essence. And then so this becomes that method from the essence of the relative truth, the purity of all phenomena, or pure view, seeing the innate purity of all phenomena. And then, as it says, this mind, right? Simdune cheme namdati, which is. So please bless me that I may realize the Dharmakaya that is beyond intellect, this primordially unborn, completely pure mind. So this primordially unborn, completely pure mind, which is the Dharmakaya beyond intellect, this is that nature that is what we're referring to in terms of the correct view, or the equality of all phenomena from the perspective of the ultimate truth. So that is the ultimate truth, the Dharmakaya, which is this intrinsic, primordially unborn essence, both unborn and unceasing essence of the true nature of awareness, that is completely beyond the ordinary conceptual mind, that transcends the intellect, that is what we refer to as the Dharmakaya. So that is what is to be realized. And so there's really nothing that is not contained within those two. This is the entirety of the relative truth and the ultimate truth. The purity of all phenomena as it appears, as it shines forth, and the ultimate essence being the equality, the great equality, or the single taste.
Tene tanda gujob to takba chenpo tang todam to nyamba chenpo nyinte kaka che ma shaba ten nyinte sumjuk yinba hako go yore ten yindu tangnyam tenba yirmi ki tawa saya tawa tangbo yakbo chi hako songwa shi yakbo chi tsok songwa yina tene tan tanda ji yinya sambe ki tene yi che te lebu yoro rangi ju la yi che 이제 레바이나 되네 가두 냠슬레나양 티치티게 당가 저 보게를 쯔마셔바생도 쯔마셔바세나 티기 flavor not losing
the flavor
flavor of that confidence or
And so this relative and the ultimate are not actually separate. They're not at all like distinct from one another. They're an indivisibility. And so when we really understand the view well, when we know this kind of ground nature and we understand this indivisibility of the relative and the ultimate, then there is this confidence that comes. There's this faith in our own experience, this based on direct understanding. And so then whenever we practice, there's this automatic understanding, based on what has been seen. So meaning, and you don't lose like that, the taste of that or the flavor of that can't be lost. So you can always return to it.
mi pamre mo che na song yo xie de da wei ta jie ba te xin gong dong jiu bi jiong si
Chitar.
da wei ta jie ba da wei ge go ne kan ri chi ta chu jie ne rong ge ju le nge xi jie yo ba te ene gong tang gong ba tang jiu ba se na so da wa gong ba jiu ba ri bu se ne tani xia yo ro te yin de da gong ba de jiu ba ni ge rong ge da wei go ne ta jie ne nge xi ni de ba te tani zin chong am tel da bo ya bo ja tani tel ya compare tong ya ke som no tam tel gong ba jiu ba gong ba se go res
So gombadang chuba nyamdu rebe.
gong ba na jiu ba ni ji go ne da wei go ne nge xi ni de ba te den bo cha ya tang ya bo cha ya sang ren ro ya gong ba na jiu ba se go res
So nigala.
ni ka
And so as Mipam Rinpoche says that like to the extent that you definitively settle or decide with respect to the view, and there is like certainty or confidence with respect to that view or the nature of your own mind, then the meditation and conduct kind of serve to strengthen that certainty, and likewise the certainty strengthens the meditation and the conduct. So as we often talk about the three, the view, meditation, and conduct. And so it depends, most importantly upon this certainty with respect to the view, having developed confidence, based on direct understanding, and then as that is habituated, the process of the meditation and conduct is to sustain or to habituate that recognition, which just increases the confidence. It makes it stronger.
ta jer song da wa gong ba jiu ba ri bu se ne ye wa xi rao ji
So, yewa ji. Re
xa ge wa jer
ji.
tong che na te da wa se ya te rong ge ha ko ba ngi xi ni ba ta gong ba te le sang ro tong ya ten ren ro ya tang te ya bo cha ya te ni jiu ba ge te ge cho che ne gom ja bia ta so ya ren ro ya tang te ni ri bu se ne ti ge da wei ge ta ji xa wei ten de dan tar to to ko go rang ge ju to ko go to ba ni ya ta la te ni ri bu se te ni ta gom ju re se xi xa yin na da jer song da wa de gong ba ta na dan ri bu se na ri gab gab sa so xi lam ri bu se ro xi se ya de lam se ri bu se ya som sha de ni xi se ya de da wei ge ta ji ya xi de la sha ba de xi se ya de ni le bu de ta na zo king ga zi xi se ya de ka ri mi tang da di chun yin zu le bu tang bo ne Kuba part Tawaham, Tawat, Tawigorlishigo.
Tampo gupa bar? Gare?
Timatse, Tawat Senatanda Hill Chawson, he said, Moni Karimi, Dembat Karimi.
So ji di to garere kung ta tawala ka ji
Tawa said, he said, in Jerwachimodo. Tawa said, Rongi, Hakoya, Nishinia, Tawa second. Ha Kogoya the Karkogors, he said, Kogor, he said, nature country Jimmy. The Tawa the Hini, the Tawa the your gender, which Hiti, Yulda, which Yulda, your gen. Get a hina?
So kung ta nga go tom song kain sene chang ji sung du di dranga ji sung yore samsung ji ha ko song
ground, base or foundation.
So sometimes we yini ang samsam la ji yore sung yore wa tawa gomba chuba drebu. Yeah, okay, so dranga ji sung sung.
Tawa sengdo.
Yeah.
And he lam drivers do. Tawa sengdo, he sengdo.
Rela. Yini ang samsam la ji dranga ji la karebe tawa chupa gomba tawa gomba chupa. Okay, that's all. Yeah.
Then he lam drivers na dranga songdo. You know, take up he.
Dunda kaka.
Ground.
Yes, sorry, there's a word that sounds exactly the same. It's either for or the ground. To me, it maybe sounds sort of different. It's the same.
Exactly.
It is
Tibetan.
Also.
Exactly same pronunciation.
But he was saying both. He was using it as the number 4 and also referring to the ground. So just getting clear about that. So normally we're all familiar with, for instance, the explanation of, say, the view, the meditation, and conduct. Sometimes it's explained as 4. So the view, meditation, conduct, and fruition. And so in that case, so of course, the view is a matter of like becoming decisively settling upon or becoming confident with regard to the understanding of the ground. So understanding the ground of awareness, that ground essence, correctly is what is referred to as the view. And then as that becomes clearer and clearer and more habituated, then that's the meditation, that process of habituation, together with the conduct, which is a part of this process as well. And then the fruition becomes like the fully matured realization, the full realization of kind of brought to maturation. Sometimes we say the same, sometimes we see it only as the 3, so the view, meditation, and conduct, and then also what is referred to as the ground, the path, and the fruition. And so then, in that case, the meditation and the conduct are sort of subsumed into the path. So we have the ground, the path, and the fruition, and the ground being, also sort of synonymous with the view. In that, though, you can think of it in terms of the view being like the subject and the ground being the object, right? So the view being, that which is developed in terms of understanding or realization with respect to how the ground is, understanding correctly what is this ultimate essence of awareness. So in this text, the basic space of phenomena, or the Chuyingzo, so we have, it's divided into chapters, and so the 1st through the 9th chapter is really dealing primarily with the view, right? The view or the ground. So really coming to an understanding with what is the nature of the ground, what is the nature of the view, how to really understand the view, and then det sang meg
sayat yorjin tawa sayat yorjin shane hil shagwa nangshi tanda lam sayat yorl shane gomba sayat juba sayat yorjin 샤난 릭도다 주주바세야 되지송 류가 이솜지 주바 요르트니나 조치와트 이지 주바다 고마탈라 거기로한테는 리버스도 다 더비야들라 거기 결동제나 똑바 세야도 마서 유리연와테네 똑이야데 다 실을 샤난 리거 주지고 탈 샤난 리거 테인데 Shilam re somi na re, tagum kyu somi, kyun re kaan sha na yung, dharna chi yordun yurjen, shaq ju yuwa, ten re cha dar, ta tiso tam je, chir tong kecha paan, chua ni mangpo cha so na yung, chi muni nga su tanda, xia tala paar yung, ngo nyo gom rao cha ya, nyengan do te yin. Tene, 다 따금주 존재지 걸라 대전chen 되는 거죠. 근데 말 렘베 추인조게다 알레 책신낭 신chen 되네 렘베 말 로고스.
That's all. And so yeah, we can sort of, to an extent, we can think of this in terms of kind of to make sense of it. Conceptually, like subject and object, for instance, the view being the subject, the ground being the object. And likewise, in that case, so in terms of ground, path, and fruition, or view, meditation, and conduct. So the path being meditation and conduct, then there's also the one that is also maybe connected with the subject more, because, and what is the subject, for instance, of conduct? Being the three of body, speech, and mind, but primarily within these three, it's primarily the mind that determines the conduct, and then the fruition is there is the one who attains the fruition, the subject, and the object of the fruition being taking us back to the ground, being the ground awareness. So however we look at it, we can kind of ground, path, fruition, view, meditation, conduct, how we can relate in terms of like subject and object. But if we get too kind of caught up in this and too much sort of analysis kind of that nature, it can become kind of confusing and can kind of lead to more sort of problems. So, Rebe. So anyway, more, that's just kind of to put it into context and an easy way to make sense of it. And then we will continue, just going through the text, the verses that we find in the text, which we are beginning on page.
I'm pretty sure it's top of page 9.
Top of page 9.
Okay. Having said that, when we talk about Four Noble Truths, that's also based on Shilam Dagomkyu Re.
So what he said is, so he just part English, part Tibetan. When we talk about the Four Noble Truths, we can also relate that to ground, path, and fruition, and view, meditation, and conduct.
다 당부 덴바들 동ар 덴바 샤드 그 데스판트로나 릭사 카르스나 히고야 르완데서 데인데 동ar 덴발라데네 샤위캅서 동ar세야 히고야 동ar 기모고 히고야 동ar세야 가이미 히고야 히용데 데네 메타바임바 동ar바임바 동바임바 다메바임바
Metabayimba, Dungawayanba, Tongbayimba, Medabayimba.
그 당보텔라 시 예와 시세난다 저시 시잠난 저긴도 같은데
Jidangaji.
장가시로 이나 디시리스
Dijire. Okay.
디 장가시리 디시리
Nika. So then in regards to the Four Noble Truths, so the first truth, which is the truth of suffering, or we should understand or know the truth of suffering. So what does it mean to know the truth of suffering? It is to know also that the nature of all phenomena is impermanent. It is the nature of suffering, dukkha. It is empty, and it is non-self. It is the nature of non-self. It is not really, it is selfless. All phenomena are selfless in nature. They are impermanent. They are the nature of suffering. They are the nature of emptiness. So there are these four, and these four are the ground in this sense. Rebe.
Tene kunjung sene danda dungargi gyuta hiwe kapsa padang tanda jertong tanda higi korta higora, tawi korta higora, kandachi taka, karjun dungardi gyu kandachi li hyungdo mando, te hiwe kapsa tawam hi higora. Tene dungar kunjung tene tanda ngokpa se yoro, ngokpa se nriwara, nriwa se na hilam re somga na nriwara. Ina tenpa hihiwe kapsa, nriwa tu ngulu hi gyoti jili hi yoro. Tanda hihiwe kapsa, dungar ten nriwara, ten ngulu hi jine, kunjung tu jyora, tiki jyo, jili hi yoro.
Kungtates go Thompson. So kunjung ka la tene karere pena dunga di niga jire.
Niga hi, tawa hi goro.
Tawa.
Tene
Tene gokpa tang lam.
gokpa de lam te tanda hi lam se lam darwa. Te
Lam.
tanda
Tang gokpa drebo.
gomba kom te hi goro. Ten driwa te hilam re som sen, da ta kom kyun re hi ti nong ki tanda hiwa driwa te ten gokpa te driwa. Ina tanda denpa hi rang hi hiwe kapsu dungar kunjung gokpa lam sen tanda hi goro te indu hi goya da yon jum sen kaka yor tanda ma hi riksare.
So dor dupa tenda dangponi de dungal dang kunjung ji. Tene gokpa drebu. Tene lam lam.
Lam gomba.
So then when it comes to then the second noble truth, which is the origination of suffering or the cause of suffering, so this also can be understood as, in this kind of context, the ground. So this truth of suffering and the origination or the cause of suffering are the ground. And actually we can think of as the view. So whether we're dividing it into or looking at it from the perspective of ground, path, and fruition, or view, meditation, conduct. So in this case, both the truth of suffering and the cause of suffering, the origination of suffering, are both the ground and or the view. And then the truth of cessation which is the third. So it's a little bit backwards because the cessation comes third instead of fourth in the presentation of the Four Noble Truths. But the truth of cessation then is the fruition. That's the result, is cessation. And then the truth of the path, in other words, the path that leads to cessation, is the path. The path is the path in terms of, the path is the path section of ground, path, and fruition, and also view, meditation, and conduct. So meditation, in this case, being synonymous with the path, like meditation and conduct.
Te indu da hi te tawi gone tak chuya de keche more da rang yi chechi ni go gorba yi che te ni ne tene gom java ina gom da sambo chagar te indu te yi che ta jertong do yi kapsi na nga kapsi mangbo yor ina ya tan de tanda zogba chemo rang chuki che tene zogba chemo rang lo le hit higo ta hit kan ri me tene hit te sa chi mandava segona tesa che tene kovalanyate tes mandava navajo resanga so karisana andoye kaps hivi kaps tanda omada tendre kaps hivi kaps hivo ma teni sungjo sendo
Dini Songjo.
hivo ma tembani songjo bores da me kaps demba se du tembani se du guzop de demba to totam demba guzop to nawa se ya de totam de tomba se non ton yer metal tene hi segdo
The Umakabla.
umeka da uma se du ngazo tawan tartuk batanan doi kaps hibi tawan tartuk batal uma segro tene nga ji kaps tanda hiba nang hiri guzop takba chenbo todam to nyamba chenbo se du 당냠 된바 yen미 ji tawasan ti tawa to higaro tene da
Don
da
Dam Nyamba.
다 될 그 희세요. 근데 적행기 값을 단다 이해 된지 희세난다. 통미 지지선한다. 근데 희세야지 그러와다 냥을인데 봐. 네가 마중배 원으로도 근데 희세야지 희고. 대시 용도 때네.
The Korde Yangcha, Gongta Korde Gare, Ging.
그러와서야지. 마트로 냥엘인데 봐서야지 그 말로 딩온을 희세야지 요래서 희고 대인도 때때 사진 라가면도
That's all. So again, when it comes to kind of whatever kind of context that we're thinking about it in, whether sutra or tantra, or here in the teachings of Dzogchen, the importance is with regard to these kind of designations of view, meditation, conduct, and so forth around path and fruition. It's important that we develop, that one develop kind of confidence or faith in the view, and then in order to then really be able to meditate appropriately, regardless of the sort of the system or the context in which this is. And so first is the development of understanding or confidence. And so there are some differences in how, like the designation of, say, for instance, the ground is with regard to these different kind of divisions of Dharma. So, for instance, in the case of Sutra, in the case of Tantra, in the case of Dzogchen is a little bit different. So the way to understand what is meant by ground in the context of Dzogchen varies from, say, for instance, in the context of Madhyamaka. So Madhyamaka, which where there's, when both in the kind of all systems, we have kind of this division of relative truth and ultimate truth. And so we have, for instance, in Madhyamaka, the ground is the indivisibility of the two truths. So then in Tantra, as we were saying, or as in secret mantra, Vajrayana, we have, the relative truth being, still in, before we go there, excuse me, still in the Madhyamaka system, the relative is referring to a phenomena or appearance. The ultimate nature is referring to that ultimate nature of absolute emptiness. And so there is, so the ultimate view in Madhyamaka is this indivisibility of the relative and the ultimate, or appearance and emptiness, the indivisible union of appearance and emptiness. Then in the context of secret mantra, it's more, as he was saying before, the relative being purity, like the purity of all phenomena, their pure view, which perceives, the innate purity of all phenomena, and the ultimate nature being the great equality, or the the equality of all phenomena. And so that the indivisibility in this case becomes the indivisibility of purity and equality, or great equality. But then in Dzogchen, it's a little bit different, because we talk a lot about, for instance, the primordial ground. So the emphasis sort of being on this primordial nature, which it is described as, prior to kind of like ever having been deluded, experiencing the delusion of samsara, and beyond, or sort of there being any accomplishment of nirvana or fruit of nirvana. So sort of before there is any designation of samsara or nirvana or delusion and awakening, there is this absolute nature, which is the primordial ground. And so that primordial nature is what we are referring to in Dzogchen as the ground. That is the absolute truth.
Yore, and it's a gone mandavere, Tunjicone, this mandava yore, the Yinayon, so kingi heat, Tajik to bed the mandava, then by Yermi lay lost churva, Tangyam then by Yermi lay lost churva, then in Aji Gapson as a good up, Shivi Gapson, Nawatamji sa, Chakwatamji ngok, Terik tokes and Nurna Nanda Rigsum Chu Tamjit, a Jericho to race Zungura, in the telelos, you were here, Yomar, in a young Dokingi hit heavy caps, Tenet and Korwasaya di Trubig Nawate, Machung, Yangan and Deva Sayate, Rongohi. Talk with Nawate and Majung, Tenim the Majung being ordered to country your center, taking the heat Jabber, Jabondu, Sene, Tanda Tana, goods up say at Todam say at Tig Tiny Tayon, then the Namadrop Higo, Carisana. Corvasa, the young and Devani, the Trop Mevayana, then the goods up say at Todam say at Tayon, Trop Higmarwa. Sigmarwa, the Tinder hit Jabber. To so Yilahatin, the name are college, not so. Yambo Logwayna, the robes and Hakogro.
And so sort of these designations in that case, of, for instance, the relative truth and the ultimate truth, because even the indivisibility of the relative and the ultimate, or the indivisibility of purity and equality, it's sort of it's a little bit different, because and even though it doesn't contradict, because for instance in the context of Tantra, there is, which is really where the emphasis is on kind of the view transforming in such a way to perceive the innate purity of all phenomena through the skillful practices of the generation stage, where for instance all appearances become seen as like the pure appearances of the deity, or deities, and all sound becomes the empty sound of mantra, and all thoughts become the seen or understood to be the nature of Dharmakaya, or the display of Dharmakaya Rebe,
This is better.
What's that?
To be is better, not become. It's
is not become, but is, yeah. And so in Tantra we practice then there's this all body, speech, and mind all becomes kind of the display of the body, speech, and mind of the enlightened ones, or enlightened body, speech, and mind. It is none other than that. And so this isn't different in the context of Dzogchen, but in Dzogchen there's this, again, this emphasis on kind of like prior to there being any distinction. So, you know, there, like the delusion of samsara has never occurred, you know, sort of prior to that. And there is no, you know, prior to there being also any sort of realization of nirvana or the awakening, there is this absolute nature that transcends both of these. And so this distinction of relative and ultimate no longer applies in this context. And so there's no like confusion or delusion or samsara to clear away or purify, and there is no nirvana to attain. And so the ground, so this ground is sort of beyond and independent of either of these designations. It's kind of what has always existed as the primordial ground, and does, that is all really that there is this primordial ground. And so as we read through the verses in the text, then we kind of get a feeling, you know, as we read for what is the nature of this ground that is being referred to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a little bit difficult to just not only to understand, but it's difficult to describe what it is, and also it's talking about beyond three times, the past and the present and the future, and also beyond sort of the true truth and also pure and impure, these dichotomies. However, we can try to, once these beyond conceptualized view, try to put in a conceptual framework, our intellect, mind is maybe we kind of distorted or refracted, or it changes the actual meaning. But what we have is we have concepts and terms or words that we can use, and that's our tool. Beyond that, we don't really have. So that's why in the Dzogchen teachings, the concepts and words are not, sometimes not really help us to realize or understand. It's more distorting or reflecting or even further
confusing.
You say concretizing or objectifying or reifying. So these kind of, we see in Gunter Sambo's Molam, it's very clear that things become more and more solidified by our concept. But
so
the clear part is Hikik Lam Nin Jiwuni Rektamari Chunchurin.
So what Kimbola was just referring to is this prayer, the prayer of Kunten Zangpo, and he was saying how even when we read that prayer, we see how it explains that it goes from like kind of coarser, it becomes the solidification of delusion happens progressively, becoming more and more coarse. But he said the really clear part of that prayer is where it says there is a single ground, yet two paths and two fruitions. Realizing this single ground, one is a Buddha. Not realizing it, one is a being wandering in samsara.
Very good, thank you. Today, 다 결성 조건 시비 값을 실람리 좀 해줘요. 디마제 자기는 다 망보 해줘요. 이나야 조언하고 뭐히 잘做 덴바톱스 다디가 개천보 해거. 담보대 뭐히 거 그랬어. 근데 잘做거 그랬어. 근데 덴바톱 거 그랬어. 당아서 곰 잡도 되는 거 그랬어. 당아서 대실람대 섬다고 향한 적든 저거 이나 저한테 다는 뭐해야도 가르치고 그래서는 속행기 시고 시그랑을 시고 나 그거 앞서나 당념된 바 이름이 따와 시고 그래 너희 값에나 내니 이름이 따와 시고 그래 그 시바도 뭐해서 나 속행은 뭐해야도 요르젠 인스 향에 your parkalsha, your gensurkalsha, Taya Yogi Sonrawajan, Tenriji going Moshiat, Rangot Hikores, Rangos had this Rang, Poki Rang, Rangos, the Rangi Mot Higors, Kaka, Rangs at Inchinan, Ranghinti, Mot Higors, and Andrigos, Rang. 강다용 인신을 가르대거나 단다죠 기본적으로 뭐 해봐 잠진 저기요 막 텔레 템바 톰네 텔 곰잠네 템 단다 잘조고 그래 곰잠네 대야 남페르네 템바 남페르고 되는 타르토 다 곰바트 인생 이름에서도 곰바 인생 이름에서 인생 이름이 거는 곰트 보성화에는 템바톱스 그 개천보자고.
So we can think about it in terms of ground, path, and fruition. But mainly, the main thing is the recognition. So first, there's sort of these three stages that can be kind of thought about in the sense of, or also put into these categories of ground, path, and fruition. So first, primarily, there's the recognition. So that is the most important at first, is to recognize, to realize, to understand the nature, to understand the nature of the ground. And then to sort of clarify or brighten, like, to clarify,
To maturate.
To mature, to bring to maturation.
Yeah.
And then the third stage is to develop stability. So that then occurs, through, the bringing to maturation is what occurs through the meditation, habituation. And then there is stability. So that's kind of when the result, the resultant aspect, which is that there's real stability there. So first, again, with the understanding or recognition, that means, really, regardless of whether we're talking in terms of Dzogchen, it's becoming completely familiarized with the ground, knowing the ground, understanding, directly perceiving. In the context of Tantra, for instance, the indivisibility of the two truths. And so we talk about, or we had this kind of distinction of subject and object, which was for the purpose of kind of making sense of the difference between these two, like, say, for instance, ground and view. However, when it comes to this view, it's actually, there isn't what subject and object are one and the same, because what we're recognizing is ourselves. The subject is recognizing itself, it's recognizing its own true nature. So understanding one's own essence. And in any case, so we have the recognition. Just having the recognition and understanding isn't sufficient. It has to be clarified through maturation. There has to be that increasing of understanding that occurs through the process of meditation. So that's, the maturation process. And then ultimately, there's the fruition being stability. And that means, for instance, the point at which one can sustain the recognition or sustain the meditation day and night, in unbroken continuity.
Tene, tanga tsu ta sidu mang tandan doi na mang nga mang chewa ta sidu par ta ne. Takchi chi sa ta par yor jik la, yor jen jik par ta wa jik la xa gore. Yina dzok chen ta sidu tso rang ki sem ge, rang la ta ne, rang sem ki ngo ti, rang sem ki ngo ti ki thong wa ta la. Yina ngo xie sen. Tando na tso ta ya ta ke chen po. Na xa gore, tani ngo rin po che zong yo. Chu ji tsawa ma chu, sem ji tsawa chu. Sem ji tsawa chu na jik xi kun ron yor zong.
Tu tsawa.
Chu ji tsawa ma chu. Sem ji tsawa chu, ya. Sem ji tsawa chu na jik xi kun ron yor zong.
Sim
Jik
tsawa.
xi du zhane tsoma. Chol top ro res.
Chik.
Tunda jik ha ko na, jik
Chik shini kundro.
kun chol.
So in Sutra and Tantra, we have kind of, again, it is a little bit more, this language of subject and object is a little bit stronger. It's clearer to understand in context of subject and object. In Dzogchen, there isn't so much this distinction because it is really clear that, it is simply, one is recognizing one's own innate essence. One is recognizing one's own true nature of mind. So it is, oneself is recognizing oneself. So therefore, there isn't the subject and object, really, actually. And as Guru Rinpoche has said, do not cut through the root of phenomena, cut through the root of mind. And when you can cut through the root of mind, through understanding this one thing, all is liberated. Or
Yina tsawa chu se de pukil koya nyi yo sa tanda. Chi ji inji tolu jirwa nangshi cut off road. Yana tse chu se du pukil ka se gan. Search.
Search.
To
Yeah.
search.
So he's saying, of course, if we translate this literally, we say cut through. And it's interesting, I'm not sure whenever I translate this in English, I say, do we say cut through the root of mind, cut to the root of mind, right? So there's two different ways that can be explained. Be curious what other people think. But he said, actually, it's more like, what was the word you said? Search.
Yeah, to search.
Search is actually search for
Or
the
analyze
root, or
search. Yeah, what is the source of the mind, or what is the root of the mind? Because the cut of the root of mind is a little bit, I'm not sure that's what it's saying in the Tibetan,
Yeah.
because here it's saying don't focus outwardly, you need to focus inwardly.
that's the meaning.
And also often used as Guru Rinpoche and other lamas use this Putachuba.
Tachuba. So
Putachuba is
Putachuba.
it's more, if someone says in a valley there is no yaks or no other animals or horse but you haven't been there, but you need to go there yourself to find out whether yaks or horse are there or not. That's called putak chuba. So the chut is also, chu used as understanding, also cut and understanding, but both we use.
So what he's saying and pointing out this other term that is often used in Tibetan, which is similar to, it has the word cut through. Actually, literally, you would say cut through if you were translating this word putachuba. But what that means, he gave the example of like, oh, you hear there are no like horses or cows in a valley. Go and look for yourself. Like, go see if that is the case or not. So that's kind of what that word that is translated as cutting through actually means, like, go see, you know, or see, examine. What was the word you said? What was the word you originally used? Search.
Sure.
And he said also, just to clarify what he said about the lines from Guru Rinpoche, that the meaning of that word of like, don't cut through or don't, like if we were going to use the word search, we would say, don't like search in phenomena, search in the mind, search. So in other words, the meaning is, or don't try to cut through or understand phenomena, try to understand your own mind. So don't look outward, look inward.
And also, now nobody think much about the translation for Trikchut, yeah.
Trekchut, okay, so these days mostly we use the word trekchut, we don't think about it so much, right? The meaning,
through,
the translate, and the translation is
almost,
usually cutting
I think
through.
unanimously, I don't know, someone maybe, but we also can use as a Trikchut as a gain a confidence in, or you need to 100% sure you understand the meaning. So that's a strict chut. Yeah. Chut is also understanding what you are translating or realizing.
So that's the real meaning of the cutting through in that case is understanding, right?
Yeah, chut has this meaning in Tibetan.
So, what's that?
Yeah.
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 But what he's saying is that in the word which means cut in Tibetan, that it also also has the meaning of, I think, understanding. It sounds like you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's sort of different in Tibetan, and also decide has the word cut in it too. So like to.
Often in these days, takchut means make decision. Yeah.
And what's hard is that cut through in English, it really doesn't carry understanding. It carries, it has this feeling of like, yes, like slice through it, you know, straight to the essence, like get right to the essence. So that's why it feels really meaningful when we use that word, but meaning is a little bit different from what it is in Tibetan.
Okay, that's what Dzogchen tradition treats this he or ground, and the view that Dawa, how to look at the ground. Now we read through these verses, and these verses are beautiful and also very profound, carry profound meanings, so we try.
So is it the very top of the 9, or?
And I read Tibetan, and then you can help to read English, and then we see. Anyone wants to suggest better translation would be helpful. And
Do you have it in Spanish too, Claudia? No. Yeah.
No, in Spanish.
I can post,
Yeah.
I have it here, what I can do is I can screen share while he's reading,
Okay.
and post in there, and then maybe someone can translate.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Yene lunje chobe, yene lunjo, ponjo me be shen, chunye ngong, chunye sekpa yang, chenpa manga, yenji jente, xia, xi xin zho, me yene ne ba, nyingka xin to, ngonsa me ji chu.
So in English, it is timelessly and spontaneously present. This pure realm is without transition or change. With the perception of the true nature of phenomena within basic space, wisdom arises continuously as the adornment of that space. Not created or achieved, it abides timelessly. Like the sun in the sky, it is amazing and superb. I know you already have issues with the translation. No?
Which one?
Oh, ang Samsung chirang. Oh, pache digi yo samare samgi yo sari di injike. Manebe.
No.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't look at.
Sorry.
Because yeah, I kind of a little bit suggestion here because when we learn Abhidharmas and other texts that even Madhyamikas and even Tantric texts, there is sometimes make clear divisions what is ultimate truth and what is relative truth. And the terms are very much designated what meant to be, and also a little bit difficult to switch, or these terms are not malleable.
Malleable.
But here, every word and syllable and sentence structures are very important, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter what here says, but better to have more free.
Okay.
This is even Siri listen to.
She's like, all right, I'm down with that.
Means we should have listened. Yeah, it's better to have how to say in English, not really spacious, but unimpededly kind of traverse back and forth terms.
I was thinking the word poetic.
It's poetic, it's one thing, but also terms are designated, not necessarily fixated objects.
Right.
Of course, poetic language is here is powerful, and also, but sometimes we say, "Oh, this is ground, cannot be Rigpa. This is Rigpa, cannot be ground." This kind of.
We try to isolate words and sort of concretize, solidify their meaning.
That way, yeah. Fire cannot be water forever, kind of. But here, maybe fire is water, kind of, yeah. And then, ye ne lunji choban ponjol maybe hingson. Ta ye ne, then how course ye ne say at Toma maybe tune. Katsongoma lundrup say, Gada say, the lundrup say, number ni. Here's Gada say, Bombi chan hi, lundrup say at Zalvi chan hi. Yinayang, Gada lundrup song to Juba. Tella, I think that's he segorva. The Indu D capsule lundrup yen lungi trubas, 대 속행기 시드 차가 대 보아던 주로 매봐 너나테 다신 암 내다고 차가래서 다테 속행기 시세는 선한적으로 추지 인선한적으로 대라 당보 단도나 속행기 시세야 다 하고야 계지 모르겠어.
So as it says first, like, so the first word being timeless, so it is timeless, or sometimes it's the same word that we might translate as primordial, spontaneously present, which is hlundrup, and or the timeless also being, without beginningless, without beginning, spontaneously present, and then kadak. Pogyorme Beijing Kadak upper. Oh, Chitang. Okay. So then there's this other Dzogchen term. So Lundrup is what is a spontaneous presence or spontaneously present. And then there's this other term, Kadak, which is usually translated as like innate or original purity. What are some of the ways we translate it? Primordial purity, original purity. Pristine, purity. And so Alpha purity, I don't know about that.
Ka is the first letter in the
Oh, okay, I see.
alpha is the first letter in the Greek alphabet.
Okay.
K is the first letter.
Okay, that's reasonable. But then, so the Lundrup, the spontaneous presence, when we talk about like this, the innate essence, which is usually described, for instance, as the union of clarity and emptiness, or luminosity and emptiness, this term Lundrup, which is the spontaneous presence, is connected with the clarity aspect, and this word kadak, or innate purity, is connected with the emptiness essence or aspect. But really, it's the ground is the indivisibility of these two. So the indivisibility of Lundrup and Kadak, or spontaneous presence and innate purity, the indivisibility of clarity and emptiness, and so. So this, in this case, this spontaneous presence is like that is. Primordially or timelessly, spontaneously present. This ground, and what is it? This ground, the ground that we are referring to in the context of Dzogchen, which is without transition or change. So this pure realm is without transition or change. So this Dzogchen ground, which is also the Dharmadhatu, or the basic space of phenomena as it is translated here. So first we have to understand, it's important to understand this ground, which is timeless, spontaneously present, and without transition or change.
Sorry, question. You mentioned Kadak, but it's not actually in this.
It's not in it.
Maybe there was a weaker translation.
But it is interesting, the Jing, I was just looking at how Jing is translated as pure realm, and that kind of adds a little bit too much to me, actually. In the Tibetan, it's like the field, it's just the field, it's just the dimension of spontaneous presence, the timeless spontaneous presence with it, which is without transition or change, which of course is pure. It has that element of purity, as he was saying, but the word in Tibetan just is like field or dimension.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's field. Yeah. Tene ta he said that he becomes tene to some lin debi to hibasen Dzogchen becomes to some lin de be to hibala seguro. Yina tene he said that 당보 코르바다 냥엘은 대바니 마트비 ngule 총 코르바다 냥엘은 대바니 트럽 서비스엘테네 힘이고 같은 데를 배서 텐데 그제 시고 말했어 단단 코르바다 냥 단달 계직 될라요 nga tsu tsoma hiki tola nede yo ba. Hi tang char ma nyong ba. Hi korong yong powa tang gyurba me ba san, po gyur me ba san do. Ten nang xin nga tsu yong do na hi le hi tang ka char nyong yo ma res.
And so it is this ground itself transcends the three times. It's beyond the three times, which sometimes is said to be the fourth time, or maybe the fourth dimension, or sort of the fourth time, which is the fourth time being the time that is beyond the three times. So it is timeless, in other words. And this ground is it is precedes samsara and nirvana. So it is, samsara has never been, it has existed, prior to samsara ever coming into existence or to being. And yet, if we think, oh, okay, so there's the primordial ground, which then changes once samsara comes into being, that's not the case either. It's also here in this very moment. There has never been any wavering, actually, from the ground. So the ground is without transition or change, and it is, and we have also never been separate from it. So there is never any separation from the ground. There is never any change in the ground. It is primordially existed as such, and continues, to as the basic essence of every present moment. Rebe.
Tandene ma tanda kurwegi chu inanda nyangen debi chu ina tam jede hili harwam hini chungwa hili mayuba riz tindu tana chuyin ngang le ta hi chu ji yingi ngang tele chuni sikba chuni tokpa am chuni sikba ta nga so sangji sudu chuji yingam chuni ti tokpa tala sangji shugoro kundu sangpa sayate rangi he rangi chuni de rangi sikni kundu sangpa sa shugoro tendu te tawugi tokpa te chenpa ngakpa meba reso.
Gakpa.
Ngakpa meba ro. Unceasing. Ngakpa meba te yon chuji yingi genji tsorzo sharwa reso. Chuji yingi gensa na chuji yingli los churwa ma yinpa. Chuji yingla gencha dawa na chuji yingi la ro chenka dawa tanda chik tsorzo sharwa reso. Te shar dewa tenyang xie xing geba tang xiawa jigla tenne xie xiaqwa ma yinpa. Zunru jigla tenne zhub xiaqwa ma yinpa. Ko te ye ne yu dewa tereso. Pe na ko cha xiawa yena namka la nima te yu dewa re ma to kangza xian yi ke zhun xiaqwa tende ma reso. Te yindu dende xin de ngon tsarwi chu chaga reso dati peki tsorzo xiangdwa.
And so actually all of the phenomena of samsara, all of the phenomena of nirvana, all phenomena that appears and exists shines forth as nothing other than the ground. It shines forth from the ground as the ornamentation of the ground. And so that is what this all that appears and exists arises from within the ground, as the display of dharmata, the true nature of phenomena being kind of this essence that is the primordial ground that possesses these qualities that are mentioned here. And so, so this is what is meant, by the Buddha. This is what is meant by the Buddha Samantabhadra, the primordial Buddha, being this nature of Dharmadhatu, the basic space of all phenomena, from that sort of source from which all phenomena arises. And so then in the recognition, it's referred to then as recognizing like one's own true face, really recognizing one's own true nature as being that primordial ground, as being that that essence, that source of the basic space, which is the basic space of phenomena, which is the nature of Samantabhadra, the primordial Buddha. And so when that is understood, when that is realized, it's known to be unceasing. It is unceasing. It is without birth. It is without cessation. And all that arises. So the arising is just is a quality of the essence itself. So the arising is unceasing. And it is the ornamentation of the Dharmadhatu. All that appears and exists is just this pure ornamentation. It is not different from the essence of the Dharmadhatu itself. And so this is the example that's given, that it's like, that of being like the ornament, the ornamentation. And so this is like, so that this essence, the ground, is not something, it just is spontaneously present. There isn't like someone or something that has caused it to come into existence, or that has like manifested it, like just like the sun that is just kind of spontaneously present, that just is there in space. And in the same way, that it is spontaneous present. It isn't something that is created, that is manifested at any point in time or through some other force.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
In physics, we have this term called
Hold on, John.
Wait.
Wait.
You need to have the mic for the people on Zoom.
in physics, we have this word called dynamic steady state.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamic steady state for the vacuum itself as potentiating all phenomena, but still remaining the same, unchanging, right?
Cool.
So it's kind of an interesting term that
What is it called? The dynamic steady state?
dynamic steady state.
Steady
State. The dynamic steady state, which is interesting because that's like a contradiction. It's dynamic and it's steady.
Right. So, anyway, I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
really good.
think it's a little bit difficult to, if you can explain more, but also this, now we are just talking about the ground itself, but the ground, then when we talk about ground presencing or ground emerging or rising or manifesting, then we how that happened, and then it's talking about this zao, often here translate as dynamic energy, but then it's maybe we can relate what you are saying, that this dynamic energy is, of course, Dzogchen concept or teaching or understanding, and everything happened in the scope of nothing happened. So it's never changed anything, but somehow everything looked like change. So that's more.
Yeah. But it sounds like that's what he's saying, that's what that word means.
Modern ideas, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. The concept is there. I mean, it's also everything's happened in there, but they never move from there. Yeah, it's interesting.
Even particles are thought to be fictitious or illusory,
Yeah.
if you will, yeah.
Yeah, I think we can discuss more on this. Then it's called Zal
When we get to the section that
and
on
the
Sal,
Dang and the Rolba and this kind of
Sal,
step
which
by
means
step.
that dynamic energy, Rolpa, which is like play or display, and what was the other one
Dang.
you said? Dang, which is, I mean, I usually say clarity, but what is Dang?
People translate radiant.
Radiance, yeah.
Yeah, so Zal is more potentiality, and the
Potentiality.
Dang is more radiant, that's kind of coming forth. And then Rolba is already kind of interaction.
Oh, right, through the
with that, yeah.
stages, we talked about that
Yeah.
before, and I remember, yeah.
And then we have Jian here. Jian is ornament. Is no matter what look like away from the ground, but it's always it's ornament to the ground or the Dharmadhatu, because it's never really affect the actual nature. It's everything is it's not really more helping, but it's more beautiful than more you elaborate kind of manifestation, and rolbas are more ornament to the actual reality rather than distorting something. Then in order to understand that, then things never away from the actual state.
Things never waver from the original state.
Yeah.
They're never, nothing actually ever occurs outside.
Yeah. Even the sutras, you see, things never happened outside of the Dharmadhatu. One more question? Someone else?
We were
No.
just looking at something else, the translation in Spanish.
Oh, okay. No, I'm saying we have more questions.
Does
and
anyone
then-
else have another question? I mean, he's saying we can, he's inviting questions.
No?
Anyone? Anyone? Or some thought they would like to
Yeah.
share?
Offer some thoughts, even translation Spanish or any other language. Sometimes people say, this is better than German or French or something. Yes, please.
I have two alternate English translations,
Yes.
Sure.
if you want me to read them.
Yes, please. You mean the translation itself?
Huh?
Translation itself?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll read them? Okay. Realizing the nature of phenomena in the continuum of phenomenal space is also unobstructed knowledge arising as the ornament of space. Nothing can be accomplished by deeds. This primordially exists by itself. Like the sun in the sky, it is amazing, wonderful reality, spontaneously accomplished from the beginning in the womb of space. And then this next one uses your field.
Where the break Tibetan is that translation break Tibetan here.
Yeah, so it goes into the second verse,
And
actually.
doesn't include the first line.
Yeah, sometimes there's a little bleed over from a sentence. So,
Are you breaking yourself or
No.
someone already? Okay. Okay, next one.
yes, in the sense that in the book it was published in, there were no breaks. So I tried my best to have it correspond to Baron's
Oh, okay.
breaking into verses.
But seems you break in a different space.
I couldn't help it because there was a sentence that had part of the previous verse and part of the next verse.
Okay. Okay.
So this third one says, this is really poetic language.
Okay.
This field of unalterable, unsublimating spontaneity in the now, this is the visible reality of intrinsic spaciousness, non-crystallizing knowledge arising to ornament that spaciousness. Already arrived, nothing to do, without any practice, like the sun in the sky. That is an amazing, superb reality.
Pretty different.
And yet it still seems to have the spirit of it somehow.
The one thing is we emphasize too much on truth, then the side effect of untruth,
The side effect of untruth.
will arise, yeah. Then these two are not friendly each other somehow in our small brain. And then it harms more than helps. Is that English or?
Yeah,
you want
I
to
mean, I think
translate
that's clear. He's saying basically it increases concepts of duality.
Yeah, sounds this last translation try to find truth more than false. So once you do that, then always come back that karma, somehow karma is there. Yeah.
Khenpo? There's a question from Zoom, from Javier, and he's asking, if I see a phenomenon and a thought arises, are they two ornaments? Or are they one thing, like the sea and the waves? Can I say that they are undifferentiated? What is the most practical way to see them? Thank you.
So, okay, nangwa dang namto ni nika jin rebe penagarsi kong zuk chek tongna tene namto chi legiorwa tene namto dang zuk nika tendate jin dawo rebe penatenda chu dang bala dawo rebe. Right? You said like the wave, and did you get the rest of it? Yeah.
Next verse is quite maybe address on this, but in a Dzogchen often explained what is samsara. Samsara is mind. Mind is samsara. We have this already in the sutras. Everything's mind, yeah. A mind-only school. And it doesn't really matter. It's look like objects or seems like there's objects or appearances, but it arises from your own thought. So we don't really need to separate thoughts and appearances.
They're kind of one and the same.
I was teasingly talk about that if you want ornaments, better to have more than only one ornament. Yeah. But
The more ornaments, the better.
yeah, exactly. At
Bling it
least
up.
don't wearing just one earring to show that that's good enough. At least balancing two is better. No, I mean, it doesn't really matter more or less. It's ornament.
So I think what he's saying is in this context, right? Because ordinarily, given the question that came, there might be the thought of like, oh, thoughts and appearances are the nature of delusion, right? So what he's saying is like, the more ornamentation, the better in this context.
Yeah.
There's another question.
Okay. Speak about the base and recognize the base is speak about our own Buddha nature or recognize
Speak
our
about what?
Base.
Oh, base,
Our
like the
base.
ground.
Yeah.
Ground. Yeah.
When we speak about the recognize the base, that it's the meaning about the recognize our own Buddha nature.
Yes.
It's a question.
That is, yes. Early we talk about the ground and the path, or the view and the ground. The Dzogchen, the recognition is you are recognizing your own mind nature, which means your own Buddha nature. I think we stop here, and if people have questions, let us know when we come back. We can start with questions, and then the afternoon session is a little bit longer, but maybe we need tea
To
break,
take a break,
between,
yeah.
so similar duration.
Okay.
And thank you, everyone. Now I can see a few of you online, and thank you for coming. And if you are not really bored, please come back. We need you to help us.
Yeah, so thanks everyone. We'll do the closing prayer on page 24 before breaking, and we'll reconvene here at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. By the virtues collected in the 3 times, by myself and all beings and samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Degungpa Ratnashri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zoldi.